presenting today two topics. I'll try not to make it too dry for you, but it is risk management based. Firstly around contracts and the importance of those agreements, and then more to do with online exposures, cyber hacking, new age exposures for all your businesses today. So plenty of time for questions at the end. Please ask me anything. I'll be more than happy to answer it. If I don't know the answer, I'll certainly get it for you. Wouldn't be an insurance presentation without a disclaimer, so pardon that. I'm not a solicitor, so even though some of the topics we'll touch on today have been provided by solicitors, I am not the one that's provided it. They have been vetted. I'm also not an IT expert. I'm a general insurance broker, but have a fair bit of knowledge about those sorts of things. So it's all general information. Come up and speak to me. I can take your own personal questions into consideration and give you some tailored advice. A bit about us, who we are and what we do. Founded in 2011 by my oldest brother Chris. So the two of us are the directors of the company. We've got 8 staff and we're based in Adelaide. We specialise in small to medium business, professional indemnity, public liability, construction cover, cyber liability, management liability, and we can do the full suite of general products, home, motor, and all that. We are specialists in the building design industry. We have the backing of all the associations across Australia. We've got tailored products for each state and each association. We are the only insurance broker who has that, and we generally know building designers. So by all means ask us questions and we'll easily be able to answer them. Good question we get asked with professional indemnity cover is, it never happens to me, and I'm never going to have a claim because my clients are awesome and it's never a problem. But we've got some statistics to prove otherwise. We don't have enough data for our New South Wales clients yet. We've obviously only been on with the New South Wales members for the last 12 months or just under, but we've got 2 years of data out of Victoria. And from 2014 to 16, there was $750,000 of claims incurred. And that's just our clients that we have, not the greater picture. So that's not representative of everything. And then another $300,000 outstanding. So they can be a wide range of easy errors to be made or perceived errors. So the answer is yes. Building designers do have claims. I alluded to it before, but the presentation I want to talk about is the importance of risk management when it comes to managing difficult engagements and how you can manage your own risk internally rather than relying on your professional indemnity or other external providers, ways that you can manage your risk in-house. So the first step is deciding whether you should actually accept an engagement. Is it a project that you're comfortable with? Is it something you've got skills and expertise in? Is the client going to be one that you genuinely want to work with? Trust your instincts. I've lost track of the number of people that have an issue that come to me and say, Daniel, I had a bad feeling at the start with this client. I knew they were going to be difficult, and lo and behold, it's always those ones that'll give you an issue. Step 2, you need to set the foundations. As with any good construction, you need to set the basis of the services that you're going to offer. So you're going to talk to your clients about size, budget, quality of materials, time for completions. Services you're not performing, that's a good one. We've had issues where there's been perceived services, say project management, where you haven't actually been offering them, and that's led to claims down the track based on what services you were perceived to be offering. If you don't have your contract to back up what you were and weren't doing, that becomes an issue. Also, deliverables, specifications that you're going to do, number of revisions, drawing sheets, all that sort of stuff is easy to fall back on when you use an engagement agreement, that you can go back to the client. If they've got a problem, you can set back your process and say, no, this is what we said it was, and we're going back onto that. So the association has an engagement agreement, so I'd encourage you to use that or a variation if you've got your own, but make sure it's been approved and vetted by a solicitor and it has all the relevant protection for your business. Next one's important, that's the approval process. Documenting how that's actually going to work, making sure everything's in writing, making sure what's going to be provided, when it's going to be approved, and the steps to take in that process. What happens if the client withdraws their approval or changes the instructions? I know everyone does a design and then the client wants to change it a million times and comes back and forward. That happens all the time. It's putting a line in the sand and saying, no, this is what we agreed to, these revisions are outside that scope, and now we're going to change it. Make sure everything's in writing. Phone calls, if you get a phone call about an issue or about a problem, conversation with the client, make a note, put it in your file, date and time and sign it, and put it in there. Lastly, change or termination. Document the termination agreements. You know, some clients just not happy. No matter what you do, you're not going to make them happy. So make sure in your contract that you discuss how you're going to terminate the engagement, what the process, what happens if they decide not to proceed, what happens if they want that substantial redesign or they keep changing the goalposts. And when communicating, refer back to your processes. Okay, this is what we agreed in the start, this is how we're going to go from here, and here's our contract to fall back on. So it's all well and good to have your process, but you need to follow it. So that's a really easy 4-step process for managing these difficult engagements. I've got some pamphlets here and we've got some more information we can email through that covers this off. So I've got a few that you can take tonight, but I'll email it all to you later. The BDAA has copies of all this information there, be able to send it to you as well. So in your engagement, issues to consider: what risks and liabilities am I taking on? What risks and liabilities should rest with the client? What amounts are likely to be claimed against me if something does go wrong? And that's important. You know, setting liability caps shouldn't be that you're responsible for the entire cost of everything to do with the project. Your cost should be capped at the amount of your input in the project. And then when that's all said and done, okay, what insurance do I have to cover these risks? Okay, I know that I've got this exposure. Now how am I going to manage that and transfer that to an insurance company or somebody else? Thank you. Is that better for everyone? Sorry. Also, in your contract, talk about exclusion of liability, caps on your liability, as I mentioned before, periods as well, in terms of how long they can come against you for issues. They don't always work, because if it ends up in court, there'll be all those sorts of things. Less? Is that better? Okay, sorry, sound issues. Yeah, so fall back on those sorts of things. You know, like I said, if it ends up in court, there's precedent and all those sorts of things to take into consideration. But I can guarantee you, if you have an issue, the first thing your solicitor or your professional indemnity insurance company will ask for is a copy of your contract and all the correspondence that you've had with the client. So that wraps up that section. Next, this is something that we spoke to David about, and we've done presentations on this in the past, and it's definitely come to the foray in terms of small business really being targeted with online threats, hacking, extortion, all those sorts of things. So I just want to go over a little bit. I'm sure everybody would have heard or seen talk about, you know, cyber insurance or those sorts of things. I want to explain a little bit more about it to give you a good understanding of kind of how that all works. So when I talk about cyber and online threats, exposures, those sorts of things, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about ransomware, CryptoLocker. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced it. It's an extremely horrible thing. It's where malware gets sent onto your computer and it locks you out of all your systems. It can infect your servers, your mail files, everything. If you haven't got that backed up, you'll lose it. You'll be asked to pay ransoms, and even if you pay the ransom, you still won't get it back. So you essentially lose everything. Phishing schemes, they're the dodgy emails with dodgy attachments and things like that. They'll leave malware on your computer, whether that be for gathering information or sitting in there for a later date. There's many reasons as to why that would be in there. Social engineering is a big one and often the most difficult to prove. That's where people are portraying you or taking your identity online, using your information, using your picture, spoofing your emails, all those sorts of things. What's happening more and more is GPS tracking on everyone's phone. That's easy to hack into these days. So people are being targeted based on their physical location. So they'll know you're out or they know you're on holidays and they'll go break into your house. They'll have all that data just straight off of your phone. Email spoofing, I mentioned it before. That's damaging a lot of businesses internally. We've had 3 or 4 problems with mid-sized businesses where directors have sent emails to accounts persons and asked them to transfer funds into various accounts and pay strange invoices, and they've done it without asking questions because the email has come from their director, and it will inevitably say something along the lines of, hey, can you pay this money? Don't call me, I'm about to get on a plane. So they often do that. Distributed denial of service, DDoS attacks, not too much of an issue, but especially for larger businesses, that's where a lot of website traffic gets sent to your website a lot of internet traffic gets sent to your website, which prevents your legitimate customers from buying your products, seeing your services and doing those sorts of things. Going on to the cyber insurance, and I'll talk more about what you can do to avoid these issues later, but cyber liability is out there to protect small business, large businesses, and everything in between. So first section, we're talking cyber insurance is losses to your business. So lost downtime for your customers is third party. Suffering your business losses is first party loss. So that might be public relations expenses if you need to, send out a press release saying that you've, been hacked and we're still good company and all that. Might be cyber extortion, you might get locked out of your system. There might be ransom costs. There's costs for IT providers to rebuild your system, get all your documents, get all your drawings back together. Lost business revenue, that takes time to get all that reproduced. So that is all covered under the first party section. Then we talk about third party losses. That's unintentional breaches of privacy, confidential information, intellectual property, unintentional disclosure. So if you've got your customers' information on your servers, in your emails, and that information gets out, then that is a privacy breach, and there can be consequences with that. If your business turns over $3 million, you have to make a mandatory notification to the Office of Important OAIC, I can never remember, they change their name all the time. Basically the Privacy Commission, stating that you have had a privacy breach and this many clients are impacted, and they will likely fine you for that. Good question. I have insurance. I've got my professional indemnity, I've got my office insurance. I'm covered for that already, right? No is the general answer. It's not picked up any of your traditional insurances. It is generally standalone. So unless you've got a specific cyber insurance policy, it's unlikely that you've got cover adequate to protect you against these sorts of exposures. So I'd encourage you to speak with your insurance providers about that. There we are. So when we talk about cyber insurance, it's not the answer to your problems. It's not going to be a case of you take out cyber insurance and everything's going to be fine. You really need to look internally at your business. So if you take out cyber insurance, they're going to ask you for a proposal form with your name, your turnover, and what your business does. Maybe an incident response plan or a risk management plan, but unlikely for a lot of the small providers. And that information alone isn't enough to give the insurance company information to protect your business if something does happen. That's where it comes back down to you and your business, your planning to protect your most valuable asset. So have you taken time to plan for the worst? Who's on your team? Do you have IT providers? Do you have security experts? Do you have external advisors, insurance brokers, whoever, that help you out with these sorts of things. What is your plan? How are you going to deal with your customers? If you get locked out of your system, what are you going to do? Is your information backed up? What's your response going to be? And how do we keep the business running? So this is going to cause you issues, but the reality is you still need to run a business. So, you know, there's all costs associated with these. The good news is there is quite a lot that you can do internally before you even think about cyber insurance or protecting yourself that way. It seems silly, but the most simple thing is just back up your data, back it up externally, don't leave it plugged in overnight, and actually check your backups, because it often happens that the only time you check your backup is when something goes wrong, and the only time you find out your backup's not working is when it's too late. Back up. Don't open attachments unless you're really, really sure, and that's from a government website, that. So if you don't know the source of the email, or if you don't absolutely trust it, don't open it. Call the sender and ask if it's legitimate, and you'll know straight away. Also, educate your staff, for those who have staff, because more often than not, the issues come because staff members who aren't educated on these risks open the emails, and then it infects the whole network. So make sure you're educating your staff. Public Wi-Fi, it might seem great that it's all free, but that's just an absolute cesspool for hackers and people with poor motives. They use public Wi-Fi spots and will steal your information. So please don't do any internet banking or anything like that on public Wi-Fi or even social media. Advanced privacy settings on social media. That video I showed before, they wouldn't have been able to get half of that information about them if they had all their security settings tied down. I'd encourage you to go home and check that. Change your passwords regularly and make sure it's not, you know, your kids' names or your dog's name or your name, 1, 2, 3, even with a question mark. They need to be complex enough so that they're not just easy to guess, and have different passwords for different things. That can be difficult, but there are systems out there to help you. So there are password vaults that you can get as extensions to most web browsers that you can save various complex passwords, and as long as you have the master password, then you are okay. So that's an important one. Moving your critical functions to the cloud, you know, MyOb, or if you're using Xero for your accounting, Office 365, we had a client that was running MyOb, but just the local version, with all their backups locally and all their backup hard drives plugged in. They got hacked, they lost 2 years of invoices, and they had to reproduce everything. That was about 6 months. So move it to the cloud, make sure it's secure, and use advanced settings. Your software up to date, that's why they do software updates a lot of the time. It's to patch and fix bugs that hackers have exposed. So when you get your notification on your desktop to update, Microsoft Word or your iPhone, new software, make sure you do it straight away. Quality security software goes without saying. Make sure it's something reputable. The free ones, there's plenty of good free ones out there, but do your research. Make sure you understand what it is you're doing and update it regularly. Two-factor authentication, that's something that, particularly for banking and other key things, should be an absolute no-brainer. That's where you log in somewhere and you might get a text message with a PIN, so you have to have your phone on you to actually access it. So utilise that. And lastly, the verbal communication for funds transfers. All of the big online exposure losses that our clients have been where funds have been transferred without any verbal communication. They've been emailed backwards and forwards, everyone gets lazy, and then it just happens. So if you implement that in your process, paying invoices over X amount need verbal authorization, then you'll mitigate a lot of that exposure. So just quickly, I'll take some questions at the end, but I just want to talk a little bit about the insurance offering. We offer, for BDA members, professional indemnity, public liability, and a pre-packaged offering. The rates and cover are absolutely market leading. A few benefits there: covers all your previous work, covers your defamation, unintentional breach of IP, work done by subcontractors, delay costs, statutory liability. Now I've put cyber and privacy breach liability. I was talking about first party and third party before. This is third party losses to your clients as a result of a breach of your professional duty. So that's not a full cyber liability cover, but it gives you something which is better than nothing. And mitigation of loss and fee recovery. So that's costs that you incur to prevent a claim from happening in the first place. It's through a agency, offices in Brisbane and Sydney called Wadena Underwriting. They are construction professionals, experts. We've had stacks of claims with them already and they've been fantastic. I don't think, touch wood, any of them have been knocked back. They've been handled extremely well and professionally. I'll send you out some information and come take a booklet if you're able. But if you want to get some more information or quote, we've got a BDA members page. You can jump online and request a quote there. Phone us up, email through, whatever suits you best.